Welcome back to Sports Dump, Lewis County's only sports podcast, sponsored by Elam's Home Furnishings and Mattress Gallery, Global Septic, and AmeriCool Heating and Cooling. And I would like to start this by talking directly to any News Dump listeners that may also be Sports Dump listeners. I'm sure there's like 2 or 3 of them out there. There was no News Dump this week. Schwartz just had a baby.
Schwartz had a baby?
He is out, yes. Schwartz had a baby. Schwartz's wife gave birth to their child. And so he is out this week.
I'm sure Schwartz helped.
Yeah, and he helped. I debated coming in Wednesday night and recording a half-hour solo pod, like Ryan Russillo
it's me,
style.
my bottle of whiskey, and the county commissioners.
I was gonna drag Kody up here and just make him sit there and occasionally chime in.
Just ad lib.
I would have done it.
Just like every once in a while, just like,
Just be the AJ Hawk.
I could have dragged your podcast even further to the left.
Yeah. But I resisted, and also
So
I didn't really feel like
are there any headlines we need to talk about first before we get into the sports?
I don't think we're going to. I had some good bits worked up on the YMCA situation and Jim Walsh.
That's athletics.
Yeah, vaguely. But anyway, we'll skip it. We'll get to that.
Nothing's going on in Morton this week. They're still snowed out.
Yeah. But News Dump will be back next week on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. But now, on to sports. And every basketball game in the last week got delayed because it snowed briefly and also was cold.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, they play those games outdoors?
Pretty much.
Uh-huh. And so why should this podcast be any different? We're coming to you on a Friday evening. And in this edition of the C2BL podcast, the Adna boys get a big boost, and Napavine keeps rolling everybody. We're starting there. On Thursday, Adna beat Winlock 86-31. And in more important news, Braden Salmi is back. Do we need to... That's loud.
It's big news.
The senior broke his foot the week before the season began, and he came back to play limited minutes and scored 7 points. Do you think he would have played more had the game been more up in the air?
Yes, I also think they chose to bring him back that game because they knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I first talked to Luke Salmi for their first game of the season, and that was when, we learned that he had gotten hurt, he was like, if everything goes right, and everything with rehab and the surgery and there's no complications, his doctor's saying maybe he can be back for the district tournament, but he's really got that Napavine game on January 30th circled as this is my goal for when to come back. And he beat that by 12 days.
Yeah, the miracle of modern medicine.
Yeah. Trust your doctors, everybody.
Yeah.
Doctors in science.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, Luke was telling me that he was like, even his doctors are like, we're surprised at how fast this came. And yeah, he's on a strict minutes watch. He played like 2.5 minutes in the first quarter and then 2.5 minutes in the second quarter and then sat the entire second half. And also they were winning by 50. So you do that. But yeah, big for them.
It sounded like he almost could have gone. It was either Monday or Tuesday. They played Tumwater down in Longview.
Yeah. And
speaking with Salmi after the game, it was kind of what Josh said. I think this was the date that was always circled because it was kind of, he's close, but today a non-league game, there was no reason to push it, ease him back in as we inch closer to the 30th.
All right. Adna had no problems in that one. 7 players scored in the first quarter, and all 10 scored by the end of the third. Adna's bench had 47 points, led by a game-high 16 from Jackson Knittle.
Knittle.
Is it Knittle?
I think it is.
I'll be damned. Good for him. Josh was there. Any additional notes on that, Josh?
Just that bench. I mean, sorry, Winlock, but it was Winlock, which, puts a little damper on maybe the depth that was shown because the starters pretty much sat the entire first half. But they were working the bench in early, and I don't know how much if you remember last year, they were getting 3 bench points was a good day for Adna. They really had their starting 5. And I mean, now you bringing back Braden Salmi, suddenly you have a starter who is a guy who started half the season, who is now on the bench. That's a key piece. And they were bringing off, Knittle definitely has some rough edges. He's a sophomore. He didn't play at all last year. He's 6'4" and all league offensive lineman. He's a big boy. And if they can get him going even for like a change of pace, which is pretty much what he was, like this team has more depth than most Adna teams have had. And really when you get down to it into the district tournament, I always talk with coaches about like the good teams are the ones that can change what they're doing. Like you're going to run into somebody who's going to stop Braden Salmi or who's going to stop Trevin Salmi from hitting 5 3-pointers a game. And first of all, that kid can shoot the lights out. Holy crap. You're going to run into somebody who takes away your A game. It's can you be like a guard heavy team that then, brings in the 6'4" guy off the bench and then spends 3 minutes running everything through the post just to show that you can. Mm-hmm. And that's what Adna didn't have last year that like the Morton White passes did was they when Adna couldn't shoot, it was dead.
Yeah.
And being able to bring in that second look or that third look, like let's stop running man defense and just go into a zone with a big guy at the bottom. Let's stop running a 3-point like perimeter driven offense and start going down low into out. Or they were running a ton of plays they had 2 big guys down there with Lakota South. And it's like, can you run, entry pass to the post and then pass across the post to an open guy in the block? It's a lot more complex a team that I think Adna's had a lot of. And you get that because you had to play 13 games without your best player. And I think, they'll be better for it.
Okay. Wednesday night, Napavine beat Rainier 89-45. These are the two of the top 3?
2 of the top 4 now.
Okay.
Yeah, and it did not look like it.
Yeah, not a close game. James Gross scored 31 points. That brings him to 1,898 career points. Do you guys think he'll make it to 2,000?
The only thing that's slowing him down is the fact that all his games keep getting canceled. Like I was getting ready for the, breaks 900 going into the final whatever, like 100 points to go to get to 2,000 going into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. Suddenly it's the final week of the regular season because he had 2 games get canceled.
Yeah. James Gross. Still pretty good. The rest of Napavine also looking
very good. Jaron Prather hit 4 threes. Carson Denault, who is usually their down low post, hit 2 threes. Jack Nelson got extended run. Jack Nelson, Jackson Knittel is going to be like the future matchup. 2 sophomores. It's both of them, talking to both Luke Salmi and Rex Stanley, like both of them are racing to try to be Keith Olson at basketball. Like they're probably not going to be Keith Olson at football, but if you can be Keith Olson at basketball, your team's going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, and even that, like Keith Olson was pretty good at all the sports.
Yeah.
Even his brief stint as a baseball player was fun.
Yes, it was. I just remember him playing basketball and just absolutely dominating for 4 minutes and then having to sit for 5. Mm-hmm. But when he was in, he gave you that look.
He was a big fella.
But yeah, no, and this was just Napavine's defense completely. Like Napavine won the tip, scored a layup. Rainier had to take a timeout before it could inbound the ball because it couldn't inbound the ball. Mm-hmm. And then 3 minutes later, Rainier took another timeout because Napavine was up 13-0, and Rainier had taken 1 shot in 3 minutes because they just kept turning it over.
Yeah.
I asked Rex Stanley after the game how many points he thought he could score if he just left his starters in and kept pressing, and he didn't want to answer. But it would be up there because, this was a blowout. And they're blowing out the good teams in the C2PL, which is scary.
Yeah. All right. And then we've got last night, Toledo lost 53-52 in overtime to Wahkiakum. This was in Toledo.
It was. Kody was there, but he's not here to talk about it.
Kody is not here. This snaps a 5-game skid for the Riverhawks. They were up as many as 7 in overtime, and they were up by 4 with 11 seconds left. Then Wahkiakum scored to make it 52-50. Toledo turned it over on the inbounds pass, and Kyler Souse hit a corner 3 at the buzzer. In both of its last 2 losses, Toledo has led in the final 10 seconds. So they're right there. They're close.
Yeah, they're a Zach Swanson 3 and a Kyler Souse 3 away from a 7-game win streak. It was kind of not funny, but I did think it was interesting kind of looking back, and I looked at their schedule and saw their last loss was that 2 loss when Swanson hit a pretty similar 3-pointer to win it. In addition to the big lead in overtime, I think Toledo also led by 9 at one point in the fourth quarter. So it's just kind of one of those games where they had several opportunities to close it out, and it just slipped away. Just wasn't their night in terms of finishing the deal and coming out with a dub.
The interesting other one about this game was this was a game that got rescheduled like 3 times. And it was supposed to be in Cathlamet, and eventually their AD, the Wahkiakum AD, Rob Garrett, I guess, offered to move it to Toledo because for some reason it was easier for Wahkiakum to get to Toledo than for Toledo to get to Wahkiakum.
Interesting.
But I was watching actually after the Adna Toledo girls game ended. I was watching on Luke Salmi's phone on the NFHS stream, and it was at Toledo, but I think it was technically a Wahkiakum home game. So Toledo was wearing its road reds, and Wahkiakum was wearing its road home whites. So even if it wasn't in Cathlamet, it was Toledo pretending to be Cathlamet, which thus makes it a tough place to play.
And indeed it was. So to run down the C2BL boys basketball standings, Napavine is 6-0 in first place, Tudor Lake 5-1 second place, Wahkiakum 6-2 in third, Rainier 4-2, Adna 4-3, Toledo 4-3. Just a quick look at the boys 2B RPI rankings. Napavine number 1.
Yay! Give them the title now. Just stop playing the games.
Lake Roosevelt's 2, Columbia Burbank 3. Tudor Lake's 5, and those are the only C2BL teams in the top 10.
Actually, the other interesting stat I found was that Napavine is the last remaining undefeated basketball team in District 4, any level, boys or girls.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
That is a fun fact. What do you guys have an MVP pick? I mean, there's kind of an obvious one. Any chance James Gross is not? What would have to happen for James Gross not to be the MVP?
I think if Zach Swanson goes on a run, because technically, remember, they were co-MVPs last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those where, like, you don't want to give the MVP to a not senior, because then if they go out, even if they don't do as good, you're still like, well, they were the MVP last year.
It's tough to unseat an incumbent.
Exactly. So, Zach Swanson is still having a very good year.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see them just wanting to keep them where they're at.
I think it's probably going to be another co-MVP situation, which I don't love that.
Yeah.
Just make a decision.
Yeah.
And if you are about to make a decision about where you want to take a dump, call our friends at Global Septic. Global Septic provides septic service and portable sanitation for Thurston, Lewis, Mason, Cowlitz, and Grays Harbor counties. You guys like that segue? That was pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Septic pumping, inspection, and riser installation. Commercial septic pumping. Those always necessary grease trap services. And obviously, they will rent you a porta potty and a sink to go with it. Plop those bad boys out in your yard, or maybe you got a big door. Just take them inside.
I was going to say, if you want to take a dump, but you want to ice skate to take your dump, just go out to your Global Septic sanitation station in the yard. Yeah,
that's right. Visit globalseptic.com. That's GOEBEL septic.com, or give them a call at 360-736-2167. Moving on to the C2BL girls. The picture hasn't changed a whole lot thanks to a ton of cancellations. But in the recent games that have happened, Adna blew out Toledo 65-31. Carson Freeman scored 25 points, and she is on record watch too. What record is she?
She's like 100 points off of the Adna single season record.
Oh, okay. Adna's defense held Toledo to 7 points in the first half.
It was a weird game. Nothing really went right for either team in the first half. There was I think it was 13-3 after a quarter. It was 30-7 at halftime, and Chris Banish was like, our offense didn't really do much, but the defense just dominated.
Yeah.
They've gotten good at, the scout on them right now is they've gotten good at enough types of defensive sets that instead of just sitting in one. Banish said they're really focusing on switching between man and zone, or 2-3 and 1-3-1, changing where the traps are coming, and even starting to disguise their sets. So it looks like you're in one and it goes to the other. And that was basically what happened. Randy Wood was saying that Toledo would basically get down the court and think they were prepared for one set, and then it just turned out to be a different thing entirely. And that's going to be interesting. I mean, it's definitely a good thing for Adna. You look at the way Napavine generally wins games is with its full court hectic havoc. Was that the Shaka Smart thing, the havoc defense? Mm-hmm. And Adna is very much a different style of being a little bit slower, trying to control the pace of the game. Take time off the clock and force things. So it's just a different way to have success, and they're being good at it right now.
Napavine beat Tudor Lake 58-31. Hayden Cout had 15. Kira O'Neill had 13. And did we discuss on a podcast the Napavine Adna game from, a week or two ago?
I think we did.
Okay.
Adna beat Napavine. It was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I thought
think
that
we
happened
did.
like on a podcast night. I can't
I think
remember
we
though.
did.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But anyway, in the C2BL girls standings, Adna at 9-1 is in first place. Napavine at 8-1 is in second place, and Rainier at 7-1 is in third place. Although they've all got tiebreakers over each other.
Sort of. We'll get into that.
All right. Anyway, after those three teams, there's a few feet of space, and then you've got Tudor Lake at 8-4, and then a whole bunch more space, and you've got Toledo at 4-5. But it is more complicated than that, according to Josh.
Yeah, so it isn't just tiebreakers because this might be worse than in non-league league games because both the boys and the girls, it's like you play everybody in the C2BL once and then you play like 3 teams twice.
And those count as league games.
And they count as league games, which is good, I think, but the situation they're in is that Napavine played Adna once and lost, and they played Rainier once and won, and they're done against those teams.
Mm-hmm.
Adna played Napavine and won, and Rainier played Napavine and lost, but Adna played Rainier earlier in the season. Rainier won that game in Adna. They're going to play again.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this 3-team race where 2 of the teams play each other twice.
Yeah.
So I think we figured out that Rainier is kind of screwed in this because if Rainier beats Adna, they'll have the tiebreaker over Adna by beating them twice, but they won't have the tiebreaker against Napavine because they've already lost them and they won't get another crack at that.
Yeah.
Whereas if Adna beats Rainier, they'll have split the season series and they'll also have the tiebreaker over Napavine because they beat them once.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know if Rainier wins this game, they're taking themselves out of first place because they're putting themselves into a tie with the team they have already lost the tiebreaker with.
I believe they don't control their own destiny. They would need another Napavine loss.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because as districts is set up, don't the top 2 seeds from each league get a first round bye?
Yes. So
one of those 3 teams is going to be matched up with some commoner from the Pacific League
and
or
just have to
something.
play an extra game.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens if Adna beats Rainier and splits their season series. It's complicated.
Okay. Let's go the MVP watch in the C2BL girls situation. What's it seems like it's probably a 3-person race. But even then, it's my theory. Look, I haven't seen any games. I just look at the box scores occasionally. But your prime candidates, Freeman from Adna.
Yep.
Kaut or someone from Napavine.
Kaut or probably O'Neill.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Askey from Rainier.
Askey or Swenson. Or Beckman. They really kind of switch off game to game. And Rainier is also tough because they haven't played in like a week.
Yeah. Oh, that is interesting. I don't know. It's do you think, here's a better question. Will any player not from those 3 teams be a first team pick? I don't think it will. I don't think so.
Maybe Tootle gets one.
Yeah, Tootle
not
is
even
one
sure
of the
who,
Dean sisters has been
yeah.
scoring like 25 points a game for Tootle. It depends on whether the first team all league will be 5 people like a team or whether they're going to stick like 10 on there.
Yeah.
Because there's basically a first team's worth of people who could be MVP right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, Adna has more than Carson Freeman too. Like Danica Hallam has been very good for them. She's just not putting up 25 points a game like Carson Freeman is.
Yeah.
And
God, that's going to be interesting.
every time I talk to Chris Banish, he always mentions Kendall Humphrey, who is doing very good for them. It just happens to be the very good that's 8 points and 8 rebounds and 5 assists per game or whatever.
Yeah.
Like all 3 of those teams have a solid core. It's not just one player. It's not the Zach Swanson show.
What if they do a 3-way, a co MVP? Would you guys be on board with that?
I've seen that happen before.
Please don't do that. If any coaches are listening,
Don't do that. When I was in Longview, the 3A GSHL had, I think, 4 co-MVPs.
Why?
And then
That's a first team.
because the first team all league was just the MVPs plus somebody else. There was 3 co-MVPs and then just 2 members of the first team.
Just make a decision. I think it's going to be Freeman.
I think you're right.
I'd lean Freeman too, yeah.
I mean, lead the league in scoring, right?
Just a tremendous year for the Pacific 2B.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Yeah. And then I'm sure it'll be, there's not going to be anybody outside of those three teams on the first team.
Yeah. There's a couple.
If they go a true five team, a legitimate,
team, yeah.
We will not recognize a 10-team first team. You guys, if it comes back and they're like, we've actually got 10 on the first team, feel free to just
chop it in half.
And be like, this is actually
these are the starters on the first team.
Yeah. Let's see. This podcast brought to you by Elam's Home Furnishings and Mattress Gallery, where you may qualify for promotional financing.
Because you're the MVP in there.
Yes. Through a Synchrony home credit card. Visit elamshf.com to learn more and check out all the cool stuff they got there. You guys need any furniture? What does this podcast room most need?
Still a bar cart.
Fainting couch?
Still a bar cart.
A bar cart would be cool. The one thing I would love to have up here, I may have mentioned this before, but it's one of those globes that...
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. You tip it back and you're like, haha, I've actually been hiding my booze in here.
As opposed to the booze that's on the table here.
On the table in the fridge. And, yeah.
That's the decoy booze.
The good stuff's in here. And it's a bottle of Canadian Club. Anyway, visit Elam's Home Furnishing and Mattress Gallery at 1530 South Gold Street in Centralia, or again, online, elamshf.com.
Get one bottle of Canadian Crown. Mention
this ad and get
one free bottle of booze with
one free bottle
each purchase.
One free half-empty bottle of booze. Now that we're done with the 2Bs, we are moving on to the 2As. In the Evergreen 2A Conference, Dylan watched an almost buzzer beater last night when Centralia's boys basketball team upset Rochester 43-41. Dylan, tell me more.
Yes, this was not a lot of good basketball was played in Rochester yesterday.
In this game, it was 43-41.
But it was a very good game because of that. A lot of turnovers late. Neither team really wanted to take control. And then Von Wasson on what Kyle Donahue described as a busted play kind of just got the inbound with 8 seconds left, found a lane, and just pulled up right outside the paint. Drilled it, and then a full court heave fell short. Centralia was down 14 at one point in the first half, down 12 at the break. They just kind of came out firing, and once they kind of found a little bit of a rhythm in the third quarter, it was pretty clear that they seemed to, be on the right track and they were going to win that game. Rochester they didn't lie down though. They actually had the ball with 20 seconds left, give or take, with a chance to hold for the final shot when the game was tied at 41. Got called for a double dribble, flip possession, and that was pretty much that.
I had those pivotal double dribble calls. Hate to see them.
There was probably a dozen turnovers combined from the two teams in the last 3.5 minutes or so. Yeah, it was fun.
All right. Elsewhere yesterday, Black Hills beat Shelton 54-49. Jack Ellison scored 30 for Black Hills. And Tumwater did not have anyone score more than 8 points and still beat Aberdeen by 30. Meanwhile, the WF West boys are in the middle of their own 9-day mid-January break.
Like, how have you had so many games delayed and yet they don't have another game scheduled until the 24th?
They didn't beat. They lost in Longview on Monday, I want to say it was.
A non-league game.
A non-league game, yes.
They had, Kelso down there?
Yeah.
All right, so the EVCO boys standings, Tumwater is 6-1, WF West is 5-1, and Black Hills is 6-2. Who's your guys' pick for the EVCO boys MVP?
Oh, God. Probably Tyler Klatouche or Simon from WF West or Simon Neisted from Black Hills.
Tumwater too balanced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of depends.
You sound really, really convinced of that.
I mean, you can look. I think the RPI just came out. I don't think anybody is in the top 10 or the top 15.
I don't think they are.
Ellison had a great game for Black Hills. Maybe he plays his way into it. It's really just who finishes the season the best.
Yeah, I think it's probably Latouche would be my guess. He's carrying a lot of the scoring load for WF West, it sounds like. Meanwhile, on the girls' side, I feel like this MVP debate is going to be a lot easier.
Yes.
WF West is still cruising. They just blew out Shelton 61-17. And then let's see, Tumwater beat Rochester. They scored just 3 points in the first quarter, but hit 7 threes in the second en route to a 50-41 win.
That'll cure what ails you.
Yeah, that's more like it, I'm sure they're saying. So the standings there, WF West is 8-0, Black Hills is 6-1, and Tumwater is 6-2. And then, in traditional EVCO fashion, we've got a tie for fourth. Aberdeen and Rochester are both 3-5.
I mean, they're playing on Tuesday, I think. That's going to be a game for a Big 12 spot. So
Yeah. I like the simplicity of the top three there.
Yes. And, I mean, the sad thing is for Tumwater, Reagan Brewer's hurt again. And Morgan Simmons, I think, is also hurt. Both of them hurt their knees. So, like, they were already kind of looking for answers, and then their top two answers went out.
All right.
So,
and yeah, MVP watch in the EVCO.
Some young junior center from WF West, I'm guessing.
Who has scored approximately 1 million points this year. What is she averaging? 20, 28?
Something like that.
A lot?
They take her out. I mean, WF West has never poured the points in. They play too much like zone defense and long developing offensive sets to get the ball to their 6'3" center.
Mm-hmm.
So she's usually capping around 26, 28, and they're pulling her for the fourth, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's that'll be fun when playoffs roll around and she gets like 4 full quarters.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Julia Dalen. You heard her here first.
Probably going to win MVP.
Julia Dalen is the EVCO girls basketball
I'm going to go out
MVP.
on a limb and say that she's probably going to win MVP next year.
There's a good chance of that. Let's see. Elsewhere, in the 1Bs, PL swept Willapa Valley in a boys-girls doubleheader on Tuesday, led by the Phelpses. On the girls' side, Carly Phelps scored 26 with 5 assists and 5 steals in a 48-39 win. On the boys' side, Carter Phelps scored 18 points and went 11 of 14 from the foul line in a 43-32 win.
Good day for the Phelpses.
Yeah, very good day for the Phelpses.
Is it a good rivalry between PL and Valley as a guy from out there?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's more of a friendly thing now that they're, combined often.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've always had a
Is there a good name for it? I always forget. And if not, can you come up with a good name for it?
Not really. Like the Pluvius Punch-Out would be the Francis Fracas, maybe.
The Francis Friendly.
I like the Francis Fracas, but yeah, that works too. No, I mean, PL's kind of a rival to Valley, but Valley's traditional rivals are South Bend and Raymond.
Yeah, it's like...
They're all kind of...
Are we ready for
out there?
The discussion of asking why they combine? Because I've always wondered why that's not a...
Why PL and Valley combined?
Yeah. When like PL is so close to Adna and Valley is so close to schools that aren't PL.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I should, and I wish I did, but I don't.
Remember that time PL combined with Winlock?
Oh yeah, that was weird. It's just like,
they drove past Adna every day to get to practice.
No, you can take you can take King Road.
It's like
it's a gravel road that goes from Winlock to PL.
I stand corrected.
Actually, it goes like Winlock to Boisford.
Named after the kings of PL, Brooklyn King.
Yeah.
There's 2 kings on their roster right now.
The 1B CVL Boys Coastal Valley League.
Columbia Valley.
Coastal Valley boys standings are still quietly chaotic at the top, although Nasel took a step ahead of everyone else thanks to a 73-68 win over Mossy Rock. Even though Mossy Rock hit 15-3. Really? 15-3?
They put up 45 shots.
Hell yeah.
So it's a little misleading, but you still hit 15 threes. I mean, the points count all the same.
Yeah. Valley and Mossy Rock are tied for second at 5-2, and Columbia Adventist is 7-3. How is Columbia Adventist?
Just don't ask questions, and you'll get through it faster.
Whoever gets second gets a bye in the district tournament. I assume, given this league, that first place has to play in the first round, and then second place gets the bye.
No, it's remember it's the bottom.
Mossy Rock big brained with a loss yesterday.
The bottom 4 teams have to play like 2 rounds before the second place team comes in, and then there's like 2 more rounds, and the first place team gets an auto bye to the semifinal.
Reminds me of those old like
a Mortal Kombat,
the bowling tournaments where like the 1 seed goes to the final and then the 4 and 5 have to play.
The Korean baseball, it's like the 1 seed goes straight to the final, the 2 goes straight to the semifinal. It's just like a ladder to the I remember your line last year was, and then they asked Tom Kelly 3 questions.
Yeah. All right. So that's pretty neat. What's
Is
going
it?
on with the 1B Montserrat girl? Where are they at? Are they in first?
Yeah, by
Good.
a lot. And PL, actually, the PL win over Valley has put them in better spot than they were last year. I think they're in second. That's Mossy's going to run away with that league, and it's
Yeah.
kind of a PL and Valley and Nacelle for the next couple spots.
All right. This podcast brought to you by AmeriCool Heating and Air Conditioning. Your comfort is their business. AmeriCool offers a full-service HVAC installation, services, and repair with a 100% satisfaction guarantee on everything they do.
Just like us, but really 100. I've been too cold, AmeriCool. I'm just saying.
Obviously, you haven't called AmeriCool. I bet they were
Damn,
so
you
busy.
found me out.
Do you think there's one madman that called AmeriCool like last week? He was like, my air
This
conditioner's
guy's too
acting
cold.
up. Too hot in my house. Come fix it.
Sir, open a window.
If you have an emergency HVAC issue, contact AmeriCool on their 24/7 emergency service line at 360-948-2832 or visit west.americoolonline.com and click the request service or get an estimate button on their website. Let's see. Time for
Are you surprised with the last segment? Like it has ever changed?
Another segment of games Josh thinks might be good, maybe, that are coming soon to a gym near you. Saturday's game is Adna at Toledo Boys.
I mean, this whole next week is just all the makeups from the last week that didn't happen.
There's a lot of the same games on the dock.
Yeah.
I think Adna at Toledo Boys was on the last upcoming schedule.
How many minutes do you think Senior Salmi's going to get?
That's actually an interesting question. I think they'll
Bump
still
them up to 10-ish,
maybe 10, 15, try to play them. Maybe like I said yesterday, it was half of the first quarter, half of the second quarter. He might try to get half of all four quarters. This is an interesting game. I mean, Toledo.
They are both 4-3 in league.
Yeah, and Toledo has obviously needs to work on some things finishing games, but
yes,
they're definitely a step ahead of where they were last year. They are, I mean, they beat a much higher seeded ranked team from Adna last year. That kind of game kind of threw a wrench into everything. I think it was the last day of the regular season or second last day of the regular season.
All right, Monday. Adna at Mark Morris girls. That's an interesting.
We're still playing non-league games. I don't understand how we still have time for non-league games, but
yeah. Banish going back to his old stomping grounds down to Longview. That'll be. Is Mark Morris good this year? What's her deal?
They're fine. I don't think anybody in that league is particularly good either.
All right. Also Monday, Rainier at Tudor Lake Boys. This is more like it.
This game is supposed to happen. This is like the third time they're going to try this game. Again, 3 melodramas. I remember last week I asked 3 melodramas, 1 Swanson, who wins?
And this is why the segment includes the term that may be coming to a gym near you.
Yeah. This is can Rainier move up in the standings with this?
I think so. I think they're still, what did I say up top?
Rainier's 4-2 and Toodle's 5-1.
2.
Yeah.
So yeah,
of now.
They could knock Toodle down a peg.
It's the same as the 1B, except for it's a lot simpler where top 2 seeds get buys. So
yeah. All right.
Could be good.
Tuesday night games, Black Hills at WF West girls. This is basically the last step for WF West to get it out right.
Yep.
Julia Dalen can really take a step towards that elusive MVP award.
Put one hand on the MVP trophy.
Yes. And then Aberdeen at Rochester girls. What's
basically for a pigtail spot?
All right. 4th is a pigtail, not 5th?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Wednesday, WF West at Black Hills boys.
Again, just weird stuff happening at the top of that league. So WF West won the first one, right?
Yes.
So
yes,
if Black Hills wins, then that makes things a little muddier, whereas WF West can kind of clear things up. They will again be playing their first game in 9 days. So
yeah, that's interesting.
It's a while.
And then we've got Wakayakum at Adna boys. That should be fun.
Always fun.
Yeah. And then LCC at Centralia College doubleheader. That's fun.
I mean,
That's a rivalry.
There's some local kids.
it's
on
a
the
rivalry,
LCC team.
and yeah, pretty much LC. I remember this one because I was hanging out in Adna after their game, and so yeah, the Adna boys are playing, but then in Centralia, Carly Von Moose is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan
Hamilton's on that team.
Peyton Torrey.
Yep.
One of the, I'm forgetting his name. There was a guy, I think, too.
Carter McCoy.
Carter
on there?
McCoy's still on there.
WF West.
That's what I was thinking of.
Just scored a lot of points for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Homecoming for a lot of Lewis County kids.
All right. Anything else you guys want to go over? You want to mention?
Just a quick shout out. We mentioned Tyler Clatouche earlier. In Longview, he actually hit 1,000 points. And Oakville's Courtney Price also hit 1,000 points this week. So shout out to those two for hitting the K.
Keep them coming.
Yeah. People, if there are records or milestones, let us know. I know Carson Freeman, she's close to the Adna single season record. She's actually closer. I think Banish said she's 27 off of 1,500 career points.
Pretty good.
Which is a cool thing.
Well, that gets an asterisk.
Oh, it doesn't.
Yeah,
they count the same on the harbor. Ball goes in the basket. It's 2 points unless it's a free throw or behind the arc. And still, James Gross is going after 2,000, and we would still love to know who the last person to hit 2,000 in Lewis County was. Yeah. If it's not Artem Wallace in 2005, someone tell us.
Yeah, we'll hang up and listen. Anyway, that's all we got for you. We will be back at some point next week, and News Dump will also be back next week. Thanks a lot.